move. Look at Chase go. Oh, my goodness. What a gear.
He comes down to this in his car end zone. Intercepted.
McPherson. And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl.
Boss here. Mixon's going to throw. Open man. Caught. Higgins touchdown.
Touchdown. Joe Burrow has his first rushing touchdown of the season.
Hooday, Bengal fans. He is Maan. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. Maan, episode 9 is here. How's your week been going, man?
Jake, it's been going really good. I'm really excited about this episode. Let's get it started.
All right, let's get it started. Real quick, though, the Larry Ogunjobi coming back to the Bengal thing, that is not going to happen. He signed a 1-year deal with our hated Pittsburgh Steelers. So we will be seeing Larry O twice a year. That is unfortunate, but that is the NFL, Mom. Also, real quick, a big event happening this weekend on Saturday, June 25th. Our friend Bengal Jim is he's putting on his Jungle to the Hall Part 2 this Saturday in downtown Cincinnati. For all of our listeners, everybody that's interested in going, I know you can get all the info. It's out there in the Twitterverse, or you can go on Bengal Jim's Twitter page and find that. But very exciting. I wish you and I were able to go. I know you went last year, Mom. What a great event to again reconnect the Bengal fans with the organization and with the players. Trying to get our guys into the Hall of Fame. So if you can, guys, support it. It's a great event, a great cause. Go out and see Bengal Jim and all of his guests that he's going to have this weekend. Mom, what do you think?
Yeah, I was like you said, I went last year. I had a blast. Bengal Jim does an amazing job. He's the mayor of Bengaldom. He's simply amazing. I mean, the guy, he's so passionate about the city and about that team. He does a really good cause, bringing awareness, because like the Bengals right now only have Anthony Munoz in the Hall of Fame. We all know that. There's so many deserving players from the Cincinnati Bengals that should be in the Hall of Fame. And, hopefully this brings some attention to the Hall of Fame committees and the voters. And, maybe they can think about it and get some of these Bengal players in the Hall of Fame.
Well, I think you and I both agree it's going to happen. It could happen in a large dose. We talked about that with Jeff Hobson as well. But hopefully we get at least one guy in this year. But kudos to Bengal Jim. He is the mayor of the Bengal world of Bengaldom. So good luck, Bengal Jim. I hope you have another excellent event. That leads us right into our show, Mon, which I am very excited about today. Listeners, we are going to be discussing the Ring of Honor. We are going to list the 15 eligible players, and Mon and I are going to start from the bottom and work our way up to our number 1 and our number 2 pick for the Ring of Honor this year. Once again, this is something we as Bengal fans have been waiting for years. Kudos to the Bengals to finally putting this thing together. Last year, the 4 guys that were inducted last year, I don't think you could have picked a better 4. And Paul Brown, Anthony Munoz, Kenny Anderson, and Ken Riley. I mean, those are probably the top 4 Bengal players and coach that you would choose to induct right away into this Ring of Honor. But we are going to break it down today. Mom, what do you think first, though, real quick about those first 4? You wouldn't change any of those either, would you?
Absolutely not. That's no-brainers. The only thing I would change, right now, this year, they're only going to put 2 in. I think they should have stuck with 4 for at least the first 2 or 3 years. There's a backlog of players that need to be in that Ring of Honor. But maybe next year they can change that. But, yeah, the first 4, no-brainers. You can't complain about that.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, if they continue to do 2 a year, that's going to be really tough because I know for myself going through these 15 guys, they're all deserving. narrowing it down to 2 was extremely difficult. I don't know how it was for you, but if the Bengals are going to continue to do this, it's going to be very tough because there's a lot of good Bengal players that are well deserving. And like you said, this is something we've been waiting for too. We are a little behind. We're a little bit behind everyone else. We need to probably maybe knock it back up to 4. But let's get into it, Mon. Real quick, the Ring of Honor celebration. We talked about this earlier in another pod. It's going to be September 29th, that Thursday night game against the Miami Dolphins. So that should be awesome. We are looking forward to that. So let's get into it, Mon. I'm going to list the 15 first in no particular order. And then we are going to go ahead and knock out the first 5, both of us. And then we're going to start at 10 and work our way up. How does that sound?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right, here we go. The top 15 eligible players for our Bengals to go into the Ring of Honor this year. Max Montoya, offensive guard, 1979 to 1989. Dave Lapham, offensive guard, 1974 to 1983. Chris Collinsworth, wide receiver, 1981 to 1988. Bob Trumpy, tight end, 1968 to 1977. Jim Breach, kicker, 1980 to 1992. James Brooks, running back, 1984 to 1991. Corey Dillon, running back, 1997 to 2003. David Fulcher, defensive back, 1986 to 1992. Chad Ocho Cinco Johnson, wide receiver from 2001 to 2010. Boomer Esiason, quarterback, 1984 to 1992 and 1997. Willie Anderson, right tackle, 1996 to 2007. Isaac Curtis, wide receiver from 1973 to 1984. Tim Crumry, defensive tackle from 1983 to 1994. Lamar Parrish, cornerback, kick returner, and punt returner from 1970 to 1977. And Reggie Williams, linebacker, from 1976 to 1989. What an incredible list of 15 all-time Bengal greats. Real quick, Mon, if you could add one to that list, you don't have to replace a guy, but if you could add one to that list, Mon, what Bengal player are you adding to that list?
I'm going to add Carl Pickens, wide receiver from Tennessee. He was an absolute stud for the Bengals. It was an ugly time when he played. It was during the lost decade. Not a lot of victories. The Bengals were the laughingstock on TV. People made fun of him, but he was so special. His leaping ability, he was a one-on-one nightmare, mismatch. I remember Chris Dishman of the Oilers looking silly trying to cover him. He was phenomenal, multiple Pro Bowls. He was just, a sight to see. I just wish, he was able to play on some winning teams, but unfortunately he was during that stretch where, it was a lost decade and he sort of got lost in that. A lot of Bengal players did, but Carl Pickens is definitely deserving.
And this is crazy for our listeners. I'm going to agree with you. That was my guy too. Carl Pickens. And this is crazy, guys, because Mon and I don't agree on very much of anything. So this is crazy that we both picked the same guy, but I'm with you. Carl Pickens, I'm a huge Carl Pickens fan. That was the lost decade, and Carl Pickens was one of the bright spots of that decade. Just to give you some numbers really quick, 530 receptions, almost 7,000 yards, and 63 touchdowns. The receptions is third all time. The yards is fourth. The touchdowns is third all time. He was Rookie of the Year in 1992, Mon, just like another receiver that we know this past year in Jamar Chase. Like you said, two-time Pro Bowler, two-time second-team All-Pro, NFL receiving touchdown co-leader in 1995. Mon, he didn't have Ken Anderson. He did have Boomer. He had Boomer at the tail end of Boomer's career. In that 92 year and the 97 year. But he didn't have Carson and Joe Burrow and Andy Dalton. He didn't have some of our elite quarterbacks. He had a plethora of guys. Now, you and I are big Jeff Blake fans, and Jeff Blake is a great Bengal quarterback, but he just didn't have that consistency. If he did, Mon, I think his career would have been totally different. He was a dude. A lot of times it was just throw it up to Carl and see what he can do. I remember that catch he had against the Steelers was one of my favorite plays in all of the 90s. Carl Pickens is my guy too. I would love to see him on there as well. All right, let's get into this, Mom. I want to hear first your top 5 out, okay? So there's 15 guys. Give me your 11 through 15 right now. Let me hear what you got. I'm very interested to hear this.
This was not easy. They're all deserving, and some might be controversial, but everyone on this list deserves to be in the Ring of Honor. But I did eliminate these 5. Reggie Williams, Bob Trumpy, Dave Lapham. Sorry, Dave. Love you. Dave Fulcher, and Jim Breach. Those are the 5 that I eliminated.
Okay. Wow. This is already going in a direction where you and I are going to be debating quite a bit today.
Be nice in the comment section. Be nice.
Be nice. And listen, guys, we want you to comment and let us know what your takes are. Please, everyone comment. Let us hear your breakdown of some of these guys. Especially your 1 and 2. I would love to hear what all of our listeners think. But here's my 5. Here we go. This was my toughest one. Max Montoya, Dave Lapham. Again, I love you too, Dave. You're Mr. Bengal. Chris Collinsworth, Bob Trumpy, and also Jim Breach. And those are hard, Mom, because these guys are all deserving as well. I mean, those 5 guys to me are eventually going to be in that ring. I mean, Jim Breach, if that 92-yard drive doesn't happen and Lewis Billups hangs on to that interception, Jim Breach is possibly the MVP of that Super Bowl in 88. So it's tough, but that's what we have to do. We got to get to the top 10. Mon, here we go. The top 10. Let's start with 10 first. I'm gonna say I'm a little nervous, Mon. I don't know what's about to come out of your mouth, but I'm sure we are about to debate this for the entire pod. So here we go. Number 10, Mon. Who do you got?
Okay, number 10. I'm gonna go with somebody that a majority of people now they think of him as a broadcaster, but Chris Collinsworth. Okay. Chris Collinsworth is my number 10. As a rookie in 1981, he took the league by storm. He had over 1,000 yards. I mean, he was the Jamar Chase of 1981. He was phenomenal. And I remember guys like Howard Cosell raving about him. He had a very solid career for the Bengals. He was a 3-time second-team All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler, Rookie of the Year 1981. He was an All-American at Florida. He started off as a quarterback there. Switched to wide receiver, and that was a smart move. 417 receptions, almost had 7,000 yards receiving, 36 receiving touchdowns. I remember he left the Bengals. He signed a futures contract with the Tampa Bay Bandits of the USFL. I don't know if you remember that. And he was about to leave, and then obviously that league folded. He ended up coming back to Cincinnati, and everybody was really happy. Mike Brown signed him to a nice contract. But he played on 2 Super Bowl teams, and he's a solid player for the Bengals. Also, one other thing I didn't realize when I was researching this, the guy has won 17 Emmys as a broadcaster. That is absolutely amazing. What a talented man, and he also owns Pro Football Focus.
Well, and I'm a Chris Collinsworth fan. I am. I know he didn't make my top 10. I am a fan, like you said, in 81. What an incredible year. I think he made the all-rookie team that year. Just an incredible year. And obviously, the same time the Bengals go to the Super Bowl. I mean, that was definitely one of those special times, and he was a great rookie player. But I will say this: look at his numbers compared to Carl Pickens' numbers. And I'm just throwing that out there. I'm a big Collinsworth fan. Just look at Carl Pickens' numbers compared to Chris Collinsworth's numbers. That's all I'm saying, okay? But here we go. My number 10, one of my favorite Bengals of all time, David Fulcher. David Fulcher is third all-time on the Bengals in interceptions from a tough position, Mon. He played strong safety, free safety, played in the box a lot against the run. He didn't play corner. He didn't get a lot of balls thrown his way, but had over 30 interceptions. He was our thumper. Again, he really was the leading charge on that 88 team when we went to the Super Bowl. He made big play after big play. He was the guy you were always expecting to make that big hit on somebody. Love David Fulcher. David Fulcher is my number 10. All right, here we go. Number 9, Mon, who you got?
Let me say something. David Fulcher was probably my number 11. I agree. He was a stud, and Dick LeBeau did some great things with him when he played for the Bengals. Okay, my number 9 is going to be Tim Krumrie. All right. Everybody knows Tim Krumrie from that grotesque injury in the Super Bowl. I honestly think if he didn't break that leg, I think he was on his way to a Hall of Fame career. He was just elite. He was a tackling machine. If you looked at those stats when he was in his prime, he led the Bengals in tackles at nose tackle. And it was just unbelievable. He was unblockable, a 2-time Pro Bowl player, first team All-Pro in 1988. He's a 10th round pick. An NFL draft used to be 12 rounds. They hit a home run with him. And unfortunately, he did play after that broken leg. He just wasn't the same. He was still a good player, but he just never regained that top form that he had before the injury. He would have been a Hall of Famer, I'm convinced, if he didn't break his leg.
Mon, I was in 7th grade in 1988 for that Super Bowl, and I obviously living down in the South. There, I was the only Bengal fan. I threw this Super Bowl party in 7th grade. Had all these most of the people at the party were all rooting for the 49ers. I was the only Bengal fan at my party, Mon, in 7th grade. When Tim Krumrie broke his leg, I wept. I mean, I remember uncontrollably weeping. He was one of my favorite players growing up. I'm with you. That injury doesn't happen. He is a Hall of Famer. And you're going to see what I think about Tim Krumrie because I'll be talking about him a lot later on. But here we go. My number 9, Corey Dillon. Corey Dillon, and I know this, I'm sure he's higher on some people's boards. Corey Dillon is the leading rusher in Bengals history still. Over 8,000 yards rushing, 45 rushing touchdowns, almost 1,500 yards receiving, 5 touchdowns through the air, so 50 touchdowns total. Again, I think Corey Dillon put his stamp as the Bengals running back in that game against Denver in 2000. I remember watching that game and to me, to this day, that is one of the most impressive running football games I have ever seen from any team. The Bengals, only threw the ball that game 14 times and only completed 2 passes. That was Scott Mitchell and Akili Smith in the same game, right? Scott Mitchell was 0 for 5. I think Akili Smith was like 2 for 9.
It
was awful. It was just awful. They set the passing game in the NFL back decades in that game. But Corey Dillon, 22 carries, 278 yards rushing. He by himself won that football game. I remember Peter Warrick had like an 80-yard touchdown run too. The Bengals rushed for over 400 yards, I believe, in that game. And Denver had a really good defense that year, if I recall. The Bengals, Corey Dillon, I'm a huge fan. I know he went and won a Super Bowl with New England. He did a lot of great things in Cincinnati, but he is number 9 on my list. All right, Mon. Okay. Here we go. Number 8. Who is number 8 on your list, Mom?
Number 8 on my list is going to be Max Montoya, guard. He was a key part of the '80s Bengals in that
Oh, yeah.
unbelievable offensive line with
Oh,
Munoz.
great offensive line.
They arguably the best in the league for about 4 or 5 years. Uh, he was a key cog there. We talked about the lost decade a few minutes ago. When he left the Bengals, when Plan B free agency, which was NFL's when they first introduced free agency, it was called Plan B. He signed a large contract with the Raiders, and after he left, the offensive line started falling apart, and that's when the lost decade started. So a lot of people point to him leaving as the beginning of that. It was really controversial. I don't think the Bengals thought he was going to leave because he had some businesses in Ohio, Kentucky area. He was really, entrenched in the city. But the Raiders made him an offer he just could not refuse, and he ended up signing with them. 4-time Pro Bowl selection, second team All Pro in 1989. He started 195 games. He was a seventh round pick. That offensive line was special with Munoz. Munoz was the only first round pick. They had, like I said, Montoya was a seventh round pick. They had Bruce Reimers was an eighth round pick, I do believe. Kozerski was a ninth round pick. Joe Walter was a later round pick. The Bengals really hit gold with these late round draft picks. And they had a great offensive line: Brooks, Ickey Woods, Stanley Wilson. I mean, they almost had 3 1,000-yard rushers.
Yeah,
Stanley Wilson didn't have 1,000, but it's pretty close.
It's close.
And they were just absolutely dominant. Max Montoya was a key to that.
And I'll tell you, when I remember when we lost Witt to the Rams, I felt the same way when we lost Montoya to the Raiders. To me, that's a very close. And when we had this elite player, this elite offensive lineman, and we thought they were going to be Bengals forever. I thought Montoya was going to be a Bengal forever as well. I was probably in that boat. But when he left to the Raiders, I was devastated. Just like when Witt left to the Rams, devastated. And remember, too, when Witt left to the Rams, what happened?
Yeah,
Cedric Ogbuehi, Jake Fisher, right? That downfall from after 2015 when we lost Witt. The offensive line, it's where it all starts. You got elite guys like that. You can't let them go. But I agree. I'm a huge Max Montoya fan. Again, obviously, his career in Cincinnati was on the elite level. But let's my number 8, another one of my favorite Bengals of all time, James Brooks. James Brooks, again, I know I have him over Corey Dillon, and people are going like, why do you have James Brooks over Corey Dillon? What people don't realize is, now you and I do, Mom, because we've been Bengal fans for over 40 years, so we've seen that maturation of running back. James Brooks was the all-time leading rusher for the Bengals until Corey Dillon broke that record. James Brooks finished with 6,500 yards rushing, 37 rushing touchdowns, almost 300 receptions, over 3,000 yards receiving, and 27 touchdowns, Mon. This guy was 400 or 500 yards away from having 10,000 all-purpose yards for our Bengals. He had 64 touchdowns, Mon. 64 touchdowns. This guy, and again, I know he's one of your favorite Bengals. I'm sure he's going to be higher on your list. But for those of you who have never seen James Brooks play, go back and watch the film. He was incredible. He was an incredible Bengal, one of the Bengal greats of all time, and probably involved in the best trade of all time. We talked about that, I think, last week. Pete Johnson to the Chargers for James Brooks, and James Brooks goes on and has an elite career with the Bengals. Again, like I said, almost 10,000 all-purpose yards. That's my number 8, James Brooks. All right, here we go. I know you're going to be talking about him soon.
Yeah,
you're over there. You're over there.
More
like,
to come. I ain't saying nothing.
Here we go. Number 7, Mon. Who you got?
All right, I got Corey Dillon. I absolutely love that guy. He was a punisher. He's the most violent running back I've ever seen with the Bengals. 4-time Pro Bowler. You mentioned the game against the Broncos. He was toying with them.
Yes.
The Broncos knew it was coming, and they had a good defense that year,
Yes.
and they could not stop him. Listen, he had 3 or 4 carries that game that were called back because of holding. He could have had over 300 yards easy.
Easy.
But unfortunately, the penalties. But no, he was just a solid a tone setter and just a physical back. His rookie year against the Titans, he ran for 246. At that time, that was a rookie.
Right.
That was a rookie record at that time. They were playing on a Thursday night. I was on a date with my wife that night. I actually wasn't watching the Bengal game. It was on Westwood One Radio, and I remember we're driving to this restaurant in Orlando, and I'm listening to it, and I wasn't a very attentive boyfriend that night because I was just listening to the game. And
I'm surprised you missed the Bengal game.
I know, and I'm like, why am I not watching this game? And I'm over there smiling at her. But then we had dinner. We came back. I got to watch a second half, and he went off. But yeah, number 7, Corey Dillon. He's one of my all-time favorite Bengals.
All right, here we go. My number 7, Reggie Williams. One of the greatest Bengal defensive players of all time. I know he didn't make your top 10, which is just crazy to me. But this guy, played in over 200 games, 206 games to be exact, 62 and a half sacks from the linebacker position, throw in 16 interceptions, 3 touchdowns. He's 4th all time in Bengals sacks from the linebacker position, This guy, he's one of those guys in the 80s that if you didn't watch the Bengals in the 80s, go back and watch Reggie Williams. He was an elite linebacker. And again, we've struggled at that position. You and I have talked about that. We have struggled over time. Reggie Williams has always been the guy, I think, why I feel like we've never really met his standard. He's always the guy I look at when I compare Bengal linebackers to him because he was so great. And I'll tell you, that's why I'm such a huge Logan Wilson fan, because I see a lot of Logan Wilson in Reggie Williams. He could rush the passer. He could drop in coverage. He could do all those things that Logan Wilson did. He was our original Logan Wilson. Reggie Williams, my number 7. All right, Mon, here we go. Number 6. Who do you got, Mon?
Yeah, don't forget Reggie Williams was a city council member too for Cincinnati.
Yes, that's right. Jeff Hobson brought that up too. That's right.
Yeah. All right, Chad Johnson at number 6. Oh, I know it's going to probably fire up some people. Yeah,
that's going to fire me up. Are you serious?
I love Chad. It's not disrespect. I love you, Chad. Listen, 3-time first team All-Pro, second team All-Pro in 2003, 6 Pro Bowl appearances, 766 receptions. Just over 11,000 yards, 67 receiving touchdowns. There was about a 4 or 5 year period. This guy was hands down the best receiver in football.
Oh, no doubt.
Acrobatic, the things he did with just the way he would, contort his body and catch the ball. It was unbelievable. I'm just a little disappointed. I think the last couple of years of his career was a little bit of a donut there because I think there was a couple more 1,000-yard receiving years there. And if he would have had those years, he would be a no-brainer. Sure bet Hall of Famer, but some distractions off the field. He just wasn't really focusing on football, and he has some really good numbers, Hall of Fame worthy numbers. But if he had a couple more seasons like the previous ones, he would be a no brainer. But Chad Johnson, listen, again, we're talking about the lost decade. When he was drafted, the Bengals are coming out of that lost decade. They were starting to become competitive and relative, and you know what? He made the Bengals popular. Kids in Seattle, kids in Los Angeles, kids in Houston were buying Chad Johnson jerseys. That didn't happen with Bengal players. And, man, he was entertaining, and I love that guy.
All right, my number 6, and again, I'll be talking about Ocho Cinco later on. My number 6, Lamar Parrish. Lamar Parrish, corner, kick returner, punt returner. This guy, again, he kind of got lost in the mix, right? Because he played opposite of Ken Riley. People don't realize how good Lamar Parrish was. Now, I'm going to. He was a great corner, but I'm going to take it to that return game, and we really have never had another returner like Lamar Parrish, right? This guy was so electric when he got the ball in his hands, Mon. He ranks first all time in Bengal history in punt return touchdowns. He ranks second all time for interception yards. Again, and he had 25 interceptions in his career. Ken Riley had 65, and Lamar Parrish is third all time, and he's not that far behind. He's like a couple hundred yards behind. This guy, when he got the ball in his hands, he was, like I said, it was magical. I mean, he could score every time he touched the ball, whether it was kick return, punt return, interception, fumble recovery. This guy, again, he's one of the all-time Bengal greats. He doesn't get as much love because he played opposite of Ken Riley. But Lamar Parrish is my number 6. I know he's one of your favorite guys, so I'm sure you'll be talking about him coming up here shortly. Number 5, Mon,
yes.
who you got?
Oh, yes. Okay, number five. Number 5 is my all-time favorite Bengal, James Brooks. Pound for pound, just a tough guy. I remember Howie Long mentioning in a documentary, he said James Brooks was pound for pound the toughest player he ever played against.
That says a lot, right?
I know, yeah, absolutely. He's
like
5'10", 5'11", 182. The guy would just run over people. He was fearless. 4-time Pro Bowler. He had 79 career touchdowns, 64 of them with the Bengals, 37 rushing, 27 receptions. I remember one game, he broke his thumb. The bone was actually sticking out of his thumb, and they just put tape on it. He wouldn't come out of the game. This guy was absolutely amazing. I think it was against the Chargers or the Rams, one of those games. But yeah, he was phenomenal. Started off with the Chargers. I'm sorry. He actually played against the Bengals in the Freezer Bowl, and ended up being traded for the Pete Johnson trade in '84. And that was a home run for the Bengals. I mean, that's a lopsided trade. No, but he was, he was a great runner, but he was an excellent receiver. Yes. I'm hoping Chris Evans turns into a James Brooks, because James Brooks was a weapon out of the backfield. He could catch the ball. He was something else, and he's definitely deserving.
You can kind of see a little James Brooks in Gio when we had.
Gio absolutely, right? Absolutely. I think so. Yeah, Gio's a little more rocked up than James Brooks,
but still a little undersized, but tough guy, right?
Absolutely, and you know what? He's deserving in the Ring of Honor. James Brooks is my all-time favorite Bengal.
All right, that's your number 5. My number 5 is Tim Crumry. Again, I agree. I agree with you. I think without that leg injury, Tim Crumry probably is a Hall of Famer. Mon, let me give you some of these crazy numbers real quick. This is playing the toughest position, as far as I'm concerned, in the NFL or at any level of football, is playing that 3-tech, that nose tackle, where you're just taking on blocks constantly. You are getting pounded constantly, and you're not getting a lot of love, right? You're not getting a lot of love. You're not getting in the newspapers. You're not that guy, unless maybe you're Aaron Donald, but you're not really that guy. Tim Crumry was that guy, Mon. For Bengal fans that don't know, this guy, we talked about the first team All-Pro and the second team All-Pro and the Pro Bowls. This guy finished with over 1,000 total tackles, 700 solo tackles for the Bengals from that position. Incredible. 34 and a half sacks, 13 fumble recoveries, 11 forced fumbles, led the team in tackles in 1992, Mon, with 97 tackles from that position. This guy, he was a workhorse. He was just 100% all the time, just a motor guy. He was physical. He was tough. That's why that injury in the Super Bowl was devastating for the Bengals. People don't talk about that. That was a devastating injury in that game. Tim Crumry, to me, he's one of the all-time Bengal defensive greats. Tim Crumry, my number 5. All right, here we go. Top 4, Mom. We've made it to top 4. Who is your number 4? Here we go.
One of the greatest leaders in Bengal history, quarterback Boomer Esiason. I have him at number 4.
Okay.
NFL Most Valuable Player 1998, Man of the Year in 95. That's a huge honor. First team All Pro 1988, 4-time Pro Bowler. Man, 247 career TDs. Just almost 3,800 passing yards. The guy, that Super Bowl season in '88, he was unbelievable. And I mean, him being an MVP wasn't even close. Nobody else was even close to him that year.
No.
He just made everybody around him better. And the thing I remember about Boomer, obviously the Super Bowl season, but when he left, he went to the Jets, he went to the Cardinals, and then he came back for that magical season, that 6-7 game span. The Bengals were struggling, and that team exploded. Darnay Scott ended up getting a huge contract because of Boomer, and they were just electric, and the whole city was energized. And, he could have played a couple more years after that, but he went off to become a Monday night football and broadcaster. Listen, he's a great guy. Cystic fibrosis, all the money he's raised for them. He's on the CBS pregame. I remember after the Kansas City game, we went to that. We won that game to go to the Super Bowl. He seemed emotional. He seemed really, taken, just excited.
You love to see that, right? I'm sorry to cut you off, but you
absolutely.
love to see that
Absolutely.
when those Bengal guys are emotional. But you can tell Boomer Esiason has never spoke badly about the Bengals ever.
No.
He
bleeds orange and black. He bleeds orange and black,
and he always has. He always has. And you're right. He did get emotional. I remember they were on the when they're on the field area and they go over and talk to him and you could tell like he was having a hard time speaking because he was so excited about the Bengals. So all right, I'm going to talk about Boomer later because that's my guy. But here we go. My number 4, one of my another Bengal great with number 85, Isaac Curtis. Isaac Curtis, I don't think people realize how good this guy was. Now, you and I got to meet him at Bengal Gyms. That was the pre-Super Bowl party in downtown LA the night before. That was an awesome party. We got to hang out with all the 88 Bengals, and it was a great time. Once again, Bengal Gym, shout out, just incredible time. You and I got to meet Isaac Curtis, who is one of you and I's favorite players of all time. He hung out with us. He told stories. He was such a great guy too, man. It's just an awesome guy. A heck of a football player, Mon. When they didn't throw the ball a lot, right? The ball wasn't in the air a lot when Isaac Curtis played. Over 400 receptions, over 7,000 yards, 53 touchdowns, which comparable to some of our other guys with more receptions is incredible. A lot of times when this guy caught the football, he was scoring, Mon. He's a third in all-time receiving for the Bengals. Again, 4-time Pro Bowler. His rookie year, Mon, was incredible. He had like 45 catches, almost 900 yards, and 9 touchdowns. He averaged his yards per catch was unbelievable. And the guy played 12 years for the Bengals. 12 years for our Bengals. 160-something games. I think 167 games. My number 4 is the original 85, and that is Isaac Curtis. Isaac Curtis, my number 4. I haven't heard him come out of your mouth, so I'm guessing he's in your top 3. Here we go. Our top 3. Mon, who is your number 3?
Number 3, I got Willie Anderson. Okay.
Okay. Now you got me riled up. Go ahead.
Willie Anderson is going to be a Hall of Fame Bengal soon. I really think so. Love the guy. I think he's the best right tackle of his era. The guy was an Iron Man. I think he started 116 consecutive games from 99 to 2007. The guy was a machine, just durable. We talked about Corey Dillon and the running game for the Bengals. It's because of this man, Willie Anderson.
Yes.
3-time first-team All-Pro, second-team All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler. The guy started 184 games. He was, unfortunately, early in his career, he was drafted during that, again, lost decade.
Yeah.
luckily he got to experience some of that success when the Bengals, with Carson and going to the playoffs, he got to experience some of that. And when they started winning, other people started noticing too. He should have had more All-Pro seasons, but unfortunately, the Bengals were at that early in his career a laughing stock.
Yeah.
But he's number 3. He's deserving to be in the Ring of Honor. Great, great player. He's going to be a Hall of Famer also. I just think that my number 1 and 2 are just a little more deserving now.
We shall see. Because
Okay.
I know, obviously, now I figured out who your 1 and 2 is. We shall see.
Okay.
All right, here we
Okay.
go. Number 3 for me. This was really tough. This was a tough one for me because this could have easily been my number 2. Chad Ochocinco Johnson. Again, you talked about all the stuff. You talked about the 6 Pro Bowls, the first team All Pro. 2006, he led the league in receiving. Played 151 games, I think. Had 7 1,000-yard seasons. Over 10,000 yards receiving. I think 66 touchdowns. Again, he is the all-time leading receiver in Bengal history. He still is the all-time leading receiver in Bengal history. Mon, he was so much fun to watch, right? He did. You're right. He made us relevant. I mean, everything from the checklist. Remember we made the checklist with the DBs in his locker?
Yeah.
That was great. The touchdown celebrations. I love the marriage proposal. I love the Hall of Fame jacket one. He changes his name, right? I remember that cover of Sports Illustrated where he had the Bengal stripe mohawk. I mean, he was just so much fun, Mon, and he made us relevant. He's the one, really, I feel like he pulled us out of that lost decade and
Right.
gave us that enjoyment again. For the ones
Right.
of us who just absolutely had to get through that the 90s, he made us excited about Bengal football again. Chad Johnson, he still might be a Hall of Famer,
Yeah.
but he definitely deserves to be in the Ring of Honor. Here we go. Number 2, Mon. Who you got?
All right. I got another 85, and that's Isaac Curtis. You mentioned them earlier. Isaac Curtis, listen, he had world-class speed. This guy was unbelievably fast. And, in the NFL back in the 70s, some of the rules we see now, they didn't have it back then.
Right.
And again, you talked about this too. Quarterbacks would throw the ball 25 times a game.
Yeah.
That was considered a lot. What happens nowadays? Guys are throwing the ball 25 times in a quarter and a half.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, and another thing, he was so fast, players were allowed to basically tackle you, hold on to you 20, 30 yards down the field. So Paul Brown was on the competition committee, and he complained. He goes, hey, this is ridiculous. So they passed a rule that they ended up calling the Isaac Curtis rule. Basically, you're allowed a 5-yard jam, and then after that, if you hold on to the receiver, it's a penalty.
Right.
So Isaac Curtis's career took off. The guy had world-class speed, super fast, uncoverable. You mentioned it, 53 touchdowns, 416 receptions, 7,000 yards. He averaged over like 20 yards of reception one year,
crazy.
22 yards. That is
Crazy.
unbelievable. But like I said, the stats, people look at him today like, oh, that's not really, impressive. They played 14 games. It was a different game back then. But Isaac Curtis is unbelievable. Like I said, multiple Pro Bowls, 3 times second team All Pro. He's deserving to be in the Hall of Fame. And, Bengal Jim, he's doing that jungle to the hall. He's doing it for players like Isaac Curtis because they sort of get lost in the shuffle.
Absolutely.
And he definitely belongs in the Ring of Honor, and I think he's going to be in this year's edition. That's my prediction.
All right, here we go. My number 2, my guy, Boomer Esiason. He is a reason why I played quarterback all through my childhood and high school. I absolutely just attached myself because I loved the way he carried himself. Like you said, he was such a leader. He just took it's like he walked obviously, and he had big shoes to fill, right? I mean, he's the one that had to take over for Kenny Anderson. He had big shoes to fill, and he came in and just took over the football team. It was like he just came in and took it all over. And that's because of his leadership, the way he carried himself. You see a lot of those same qualities in Joe Burrow that Boomer Esiason had. And again, like you said, for the Bengals, over 27,000 yards passing, 187 touchdowns, I believe. 1988 MVP. He deserved it. Like you said, there's nobody even close. When he played for the Jets, Mon, in 1995, he won the Walter Payton Man of the Year. You talked about all the other stuff, but I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna go back to that 97 season. And I remember that whole year, and I love Jeff Blake, but that whole year I'm like, put Boomer in, put Boomer in, put Boomer in. The Bengals go 2-8 or 2-9, something like that. Boomer comes in that final stretch to come in for Jeff Blake, who I believe got injured. And Boomer almost ran the table. We won 4 out of the last 5 games. The only game we lost, we scored 42 points and lost, I think, to the Eagles. It was like 44-42. He lit up the league. I think they scored in those other 4 games, they scored over 30 points a game. That's just the way Boomer was. But in 88, Mon, I talked about David Fulcher being that driving force. Boomer was that other driving force. The 88 season will go down in history as one of the greatest Bengal quarterback performances of all time. Boomer Esiason is my number 2. All right, here we go. Number 1. We're here, Mon. Who you got? I know
Lamar,
who it is, but who you got?
I got Lamar Parrish.
Yeah.
Listen, this guy is just forgotten about, and he is such an elite player. The 70s Bengals were a phenomenal team. They won 11 games in 75. They won 11-3, but they weren't. I mean, the Steelers were 12-2. The next year, they went 10-4, and they finished in second place. They had so many good players, but unfortunately, they played in that division with the Steelers. And of course, the Raiders were in that conference, and the Raiders were elite in that decade too. There's so many good players on that roster that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. We already know about Ken Riley. We know about Kenny Anderson. You got to add Lamar Parrish. You got to add Isaac Curtis. Lamar Parrish had 47 interceptions, 13 touchdowns as returning kicks or interception or fumble returns. He had 2,700 yards of return yards as a punt or kick returner. Just phenomenal. In one game against the Bills, he had a 95-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, 83-yard blocked punt for a touchdown, blocked field goal for a touchdown in the same game. They won that game. Just phenomenal. The 3-time All-Pro in 1976, he was first-team All-Pro. Second-team All-Pro was Mel Blount. Mel Blount's in the Hall of Fame. In 79, he was first-team All-Pro. Second-team All-Pro was Mike Haynes. Mike Haynes is in the Hall of Fame. In 1980, he was also an All-Pro, first team. Mike Haynes, Hall of Famer, was second-team All-Pro. For comparison's sake, Mike Haynes had 46 career interceptions. He's in the Hall of Fame. Lamar Parrish has 47. He's not in the Hall of Fame. He can't even get into the room for a discussion. That's why guys like Bengal Jim, that's why they have these jungle to the halls, because there's so many Bengal players that have just fallen through the cracks that are so deserving. They have better stats than current Hall of Famers, but unfortunately, they've been forgotten about. Lamar Parrish was Deion Sanders before Deion Sanders. He was equivalent to what Deion did. And he's my number 1. I think he's the most deserving. I think he deserves to be in the Ring of Honor. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
And it's hard for me to disagree with you. I mean, I've already talked about him. I feel I have the utmost respect and I mean, it's hard for me to disagree with you. I'm going to go. My number 1 is another guy that should be in the Hall of Fame as a Bengal, and that's Willie Anderson. Willie Anderson's my number 1. Mon, this guy, you talked about some of the other stats, but here's the crazy stat. This guy only gave up 16 sacks in 13 years in the NFL. Now, again, you said it. He played in that lost decade. He played for bad Bengal teams. I mean, bad Bengal teams. And this guy was elite. He was elite, Mon. Again, 16 sacks given up in 13 years of playing in the NFL. Mon, he faced 9 out of the top 11 sack leaders of all time. He played against 9 of them and only gave up 1 sack to Bruce Smith in Willie Anderson's rookie year. This guy, to me, is the most deserving in this list to be in the Ring of Honor. This guy should be in the Hall of Fame. This shouldn't even be a discussion. Willie Anderson is not only one of the best right tackles of that time, he's one of the best right tackles of all time. For anyone in NFL history, Willie Anderson, my number one. All right, so I got Willie Anderson and Boomer. You got Lamar Parrish and Isaac Curtis. Those are yours. Those are your top two. So we will see here in a couple months who is there with that. Now, real quick before we get out of here, Mom, a little bit of trivia. We talked about Carl Pickens being Rookie of the Year. Obviously, Jamar Chase, Rookie of the Year. Who is the other wide receiver for the Bengals that was Rookie of the Year in Bengal history?
Oh, wow. Wide receiver, Rookie of the Tim McGee?
No, you're close.
Eddie Brown.
Eddie Brown in 1985 was Rookie of the Year. We've had 3 Rookie of the Years, all 3 of them wide receivers: Eddie Brown, Carl Pickens, Jamar Chase. All right, guys, that is another edition of the Bengals Pulse. Guys, like, subscribe, and share this podcast. We would much appreciate that. If you're listening to us on any of the podcast platforms, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, guys, if you have the time, please give us a 5-star review. We would very much appreciate that. Follow us on Twitter at Bengals_Pulse9 and on Instagram at the same without the at Bengals_Pulse9. Guys, thanks for listening. Make sure you comment. We want to hear your takes on the Ring of Honor this year. Be nice. All right, guys. He is Maan. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse. Hoo day, Bengal fans. We will see you next week.